saw this whole list. So to carte blanche say, I would support the entire thing. I probably wouldn't. There'd be issues I'd feel more strongly about and would support. It doesn't mean that I wouldn't listen, but that would be my position. I think there's a whole spectrum and a line of where people lie on those things, and I think that's good, because I think you create synergy when you bring people together with differing opinions and willing to discuss and debate those items in the public.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Wilson. Do you want me to repeat the question, or?
No, that's okay. I didn't memorize the platform, but I did read it within the last month or so, and actually I think it's really very nicely written. I don't have specifics, but it's more of an attitude of discussion about small government, about people's freedoms. The resolutions, I think, are very time-based. They change every couple of years, and frankly, a lot of the resolutions are either not relevant to the legislature or change every couple of years or something. So that's an area where I would say I think, and for me it's also important to remember I represent my district, not necessarily other districts in the state. But the platform itself I thought was really a nicely written document that I think probably pretty much everybody could support.
Okay, thank you. Any 30 seconds? More? All right, excellent. You're really getting it all in that minute and a half. Okay, so another question from the audience, and it has to do with political campaign contributions. Now that Citizens United has taken all the restrictions off and political contributions, well, most of them, and we're going to start this time with Ms. Wilson. So since the contributions, what is your attitude, or can you offhand know how many contributions you've accepted? Are there any contributions that you think are inappropriate, someone shouldn't get? And does this, the only thing left to do, I guess, would be disclosure. So I guess describe your own acceptance of campaign contributions, and if you think there should be greater expenditure reporting. There was a bill in the legislature that didn't see the light of day that did deal with better reporting and more comprehensive who had to report. So those two things, if that, you want me to repeat that, or do you got that? Your own, and then the reporting aspect.
Okay, so that was kind of a long question. I think I have all the parts of it. More people can give me money if you like. Feel free. Typically, the contributions that I receive are from people that know me or business groups that have worked with me, that kind of thing. I don't think we actually get the kind of contributions here that inflame everybody out on the East Coast. That doesn't probably come our way quite as much. And so I don't personally feel the only time that I ever told people that I wouldn't take certain contributions was when I was on the Revenue Committee, and there was I knew there was going to be a bill having to do with wind tax, and so I made sure that I did not receive any contributions from lobbyists that had an interest in the wind industry, just to make sure that there wouldn't be any question about my consideration of the bill. I think it's important to make sure that it looks like that we're even-handed when we go into committees like that. As far as reporting, there was an article in Wyofile recently that talked about moving the date closer to, so that you would get a better sense and before the election. And I think that is really worth doing, because right now you might not know until after you voted. So I think the reporting could be changed, yeah.
Okay, Mr. Little.
Well, it is my first campaign, and I spent a lot of my life, not asking people to do things, but responding, to needs of kids and the board and those kinds of things. And I'm not real good at it, so I just have a handful of contributions, and just primarily from individuals that I know in the community, and that's okay. But as I think about Citizens United, and then what you read over and over again, and in all kinds of states, and I think we're going to see that in the state of Wyoming. Records broke for the amount of money spent on this election, and people spending boatloads of money, and I don't know that that's good. And I think that's something I hope that Congress, addresses and the Supreme Court eventually addresses. And the Supreme Court did take a stand on it, but I hope it's something we keep looking at, and if there are ways that Congress could pass some laws to put some limitation on it. I remember years and years ago reading about Abraham Lincoln, and he spent, you got to realize the time, but he spent 75 cents on his whole campaign when he ran for president of the United States, and he bought a keg of apple cider is what the expense was. And we had a pretty darn good president without all of that. So I would like to see something happening with that in terms of the contributions.
Well, and I just read the question again, and so it's going to be sort of a little bit of extension on the previous question, and the person said contributions you have made, and so there's been a lot in the media recently, people being scolded for giving money to the wrong people, or it's become an issue. So I guess maybe we'll start with Mr. Little because it's a follow-up of sorts. That I don't know. It just says, political contributions you have made, and I guess should that be an issue? And if you can sum up, I mean, I don't expect you to count for every dollar, but just describe it.
Well, I don't think it should be an issue, and I know that people change courses in their lives, and I remember Ronald Reagan talking was in the Democratic Party, and and they asked why he abandoned them. He said no, they abandoned me, and he had his reasons for the times that he served in those various capacities. So I think the problem is when you look at like contributions at a given point, you don't know the motivation behind it in terms of I think those questions are okay, but what was happening in a given time when someone has given a contribution for to a candidate.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wilson.
So the contributions that my husband and I have given over the last 8, 6, 12 years, whatever. We donated to Tim Stubson, who was in the legislature with me and felt was a strong candidate. We gave to Rita Meyer when she was running, and we gave to Mitt Romney. And I think those are all the contributions I've ever given, except to me. I give a lot to myself.
As you would hope.
That's right. I think I am a worthy candidate too.
Well, good. And I think we have time for, maybe we'll just go into the closing. We've covered most of the questions I had. What I put up there, a copy of the 5 principles for campaign integrity, and maybe I'll just take a second to read that for the viewing public. Copy of them here. Yikes. Up here. Okay, very quickly. And these were written by the state on the state level. Candidates will defend the right of every qualified Wyoming voter to full and equal participation in the electoral process. Candidates will conduct honest and open campaigns stating the sources of facts used in the campaigns. Candidates will stick to the campaign issues in statements, debates, advertisements, and news releases. They will not permit use of character, defamation, or other attacks on opponents' personal or family lives. Candidates will disavow assertions that misrepresent, distort, or otherwise falsify the facts. And number 5 is candidates will publicly reject actions by supporters that violate these principles. And anyone here, we have copies of these on the table outside. But so in your closing arguments, if you could maybe include this, you don't have to, but we're sort of looking for the positions of people vis-a-vis these. But we'll go ahead and do the closings, and this time we'll start. Well, last time the opening was Mr. Little, so we'll start with Ms. Wilson this time. So you have 2 minutes to use in any way you want to.
Well, I think that first I'll just get the League of Women Voters position or principles. I think they're great, and I think that John and I have run fair and clean campaign, and I think we can be a model for other campaigns. I mean, I think I would like to see Wyoming be a model for the rest of the country, frankly, because the rest of the country could stand some model. As far as 2 minutes, I just want to affirm my vision for the future of the state. We need to maintain equity in school funding and still find savings with shared services, better use of technology, so we can use the funds that we do have to make sure we're funding an up-to-date child's education. And we want, obviously, every child to learn and to succeed in life. We need to improve access to primary care and mental health services. I want us to reduce silos and bottlenecks in those programs, and things like child protective services and senior care, which we didn't have a chance to talk about at all tonight. But criminal justice reform, which we also didn't really get a chance to talk about, but I'm a big supporter of that, to improve outcomes for people and reduce costs, make sure people are trained for higher paying jobs. That's a component of economic development. So good health care, good justice system, economic development, all let people live in strong, healthy communities. Then we need to make use of our savings from the boom times so we can smooth out our revenue springs. And then finally have citizen participation in all of those things. So I think if we keep working on all of those issues, if I am able to keep working on all those issues, I believe that we can keep Wyoming a great place to live and even make it better. So thanks very much for coming.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Little.
I certainly agree with Representative Wilson regarding the campaigns that we're conducting. We've known each other for some time, and I think have had a very positive relationship over the years. And I think this is a great list of principles. It would be nice indeed if the nation would go by that. It's great. So if you get that nationally, I think everybody in the world would be much happier. So certainly supportive of that. We don't need character assassination. We need to focus hard on the issues, and that's what this is really about. In my closing, you hear a lot about diversifying our workforce. I mean, we've had and I've lived, in the educational system with, the booms and the busts, and it needs to be evened out. And I think diversifying the workforce and looking at our structures of how we generate revenue, I think is very important. We can learn from other communities. Cheyenne's working on that right now, and I think anything the legislature can do to support that, I think is really good. A couple of items to help diversify the workforce. I know when other communities look at Cheyenne in particular, or other places, they look at the educational attainment level of the citizens. And we are above average in graduation rate, those that have high school diplomas, than other places. We also are above the average rate in terms of those that have an associate's degree. But we were below average in terms of the 4-year college degrees having baccalaureates. And I think one of the things that we need to look at, the legislature along with other communities, is can the community colleges start offering more 4-year degree opportunities? I think that would help. I think technology playing a greater role in our community. I had an opportunity to serve on the computer science task force and to implement computer science in our community. Openness to innovative ideas, willingness to do what we haven't done in leadership is needed. Elected officials should be called to serve, not serve their own self-interests.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I want to thank the candidates for running and for coming tonight. I want to thank Charter for recording this and putting it, uploading it and putting it on TV. I want to thank everybody for coming here tonight, getting involved. As the League of Women Voters says, we need to get involved and vote. And finally, thank you. Thank you very much to the City Council for making this wonderful facility available to us for 3 of our forums. So can we give them all a hand for doing a great job tonight? Thank you. And then we'll give a little time up.